Okay, so let's get into the next module here. As we kind of kick off our recovery and regeneration module here, we're really kind of talking just big overall topics. So we're going to kick off with our 5 pillars of regeneration. So an overview of those 5 pillars are sleep, nutrition, hydration, breathing, and then movement resets. And of those 5 things, nutrition is going to be a separate topic. It's, we can't get that all done in one presentation here, so it'll be a separate module for the nutrition. But we are going to touch on some of the key kind of standards that we look for and habits to improve upon these 5 pillars. So let's get started with sleep. So sleep is one of those really, really underrated pieces of recovery and regeneration. And there's some very specific standards that are well researched at this point in time to where this is basically a non-negotiable. If someone's fatigued, they're not performing well, they're getting injured, we need to look at how many hours of sleep they're getting at first. So at this point in time, the standard is about 8 hours of non-negotiable sleep. So that's 8 hours of sleep. You also probably need to tack on about an hour for disturbances throughout the night, time it takes to get to sleep, all that good stuff. So really what we're looking for is about 9 hours from the time you put your head on the pillow to the time you wake up. This is a routine thing. So obviously we want to get your body's circadian rhythms to the point where you don't really need an alarm clock for this. It's just kind of a natural thing that happens day in and day out. So we really want to set almost like a routine before we go to sleep. That way we kind of trigger our brain thinking, hey, if I do this step, then I'm going to start shutting down for the day and get to sleep, whether that's brushing your teeth, whether that's, some kind of reading, whatever you want to do as part of your routine. The other piece to this too is catching up with sleep is not a thing. It doesn't happen. So what we find is if you're knocked off of this 8 hours a night of sleep for more than 2 days, it's going to take you 2 to 3 weeks to get back into rhythm. So it's not a matter of sleeping 5 hours a night for 5 days in a row and then getting 12 hours of sleep on weekends. That doesn't work. It throws off your circadian rhythm even worse, to the point where you're actually going to be hindering your performance and getting more injured because of your sleeping patterns. So again, strive for that 8 to 9 hours a night. Do it consistently. And if you have 1 to 2 days that are a little off, that's okay, but jump back onto that 8 to 9 hours. Chronic sleep fatigue is going to take a long time to get out of. So again, 2 to 3 weeks of not having this adequate amount of rest is going to significantly hamper your performance. Ways to enhance your sleeping. And again, these should be pretty obvious at this point in time, but you'll be shocked at the amount of people that don't do these things. And the first one is obviously having a dark room. You'll be shocked at the number of people, especially kids, who want to go to sleep with their lights on, with their TV on, all this other stuff. And again, it hampers the quality of sleep. 2 other environmental controls that you can go with your sleep is adding a humidifier to your room. That seems to improve sleep quality. And then having a temperature of below 70 degrees when you're sleeping is actually going to enhance your sleep and get you to sleep quicker and for longer. Now, we are all about habits, right? Not just about information. So some of the habits that we have assigned to our clients in the past, the first one being set a bedtime alarm as well as just one wake-up alarm. Okay, getting your body into that habit and that routine of the same time you wake up and same time going to bed every single night. So I always set a bedtime alarm about 30 minutes before I go to sleep. That way I can start shutting down for the day, get into bed, and then get my hours. Another big mistake that we see a lot of people make with sleep is that they set multiple alarms in the morning. So you should only have one wake-up alarm. And when it goes off, no snoozing, just hop out of bed. You're going to be groggy. You're going to be tired for the first couple minutes, but just move and get up and get your day started. The more times you hit the snooze alarm, the more likely you're going to be fatigued throughout the day. Second habit is going to be blue light blocking. So blue light being kind of the light that comes from TVs, your laptop, your phone screens. Apple's done a good job of getting rid of blue light after a certain time on your phone, which is a very cool feature. But if you don't have that on your iPhone, then you may want to invest in a pair of blue light blocking glasses. They don't cost very much. You can get them on Amazon, but they seem to do a very good job of keeping our circadian rhythm, especially at night when we want to watch TV as we're winding down. Wearing those glasses is going to make a big difference when it comes to not disturbing that 8 to 9 hour sleep pattern. We've touched on it before with the habits, but finding a trigger to go to sleep, right? Whether that's reading a book every night before you go to bed, washing your face every night before you go to bed, brushing your teeth, whatever you want that signal to be, consciously tell your body, hey, this is my sleep signal. I'm going to do this every day before I go to bed. And it's just kind of like Pavlov's dog, right? You hear the bell and you start salivating. You read your book, you start to fall asleep. You wash your face, you start to fall asleep. That's kind of how that would work. And again, it's just creating that routine, right? That's all we're looking to do. So as for nutrition, again, this is going to be a separate topic, so don't worry, this is just very baseline standard stuff. There is a full module on this on the next video. But as for our nutrition standards, what we want to do is focus on how you're eating, not what you're eating. That's going to be the biggest step first and foremost is, do you have an adequate nutrition schedule? And then how do you eat? Do you eat super fast? Do you eat super slow? What are you putting on your plate? All this other stuff. How are your proportions? All of that fun stuff goes into how you're eating, not really what you're eating. It's actually probably more important to figure out the how versus the what. The second thing we have to do is identify your level of eating. So when we talk about your level of eating, we categorize nutrition compliance into one of three categories: level 1, 2s, and 3s. And 90 to 95% of people are going to be in the level 1 category. That includes athletes. Level 1 is basically just getting your basic nutrition habits down. Level 2 is for someone who's consistently got the level 1 habits down for a minimum time of a year. Okay, once you've done that, a level 3 athlete is someone who is refined for at least 2 years. So this is 3 years of working on their nutrition and kind of honing their habits. At that point in time, they become a level 3 eater. Now, level 3 eaters are where a lot of nutritional research fits. So a lot of like nutrition information that comes out about performance enhancement, like eat this, not that, take this supplement, do all these other kind of, fringe kind of things to do to improve performance, they only apply to level 3 eaters. If you don't have the basics down and you try to improve these small little things in the level 3 end, you're not going to see a big difference in your sport performance or your injury prevention or your healing times. But if you already have a solid base of nutrition on your level 1 and level 2, then you can start applying all these cool kind of cutting edge research techniques into actual practice. But they don't have a big effect if you don't have the big rock items down. Okay? As for nutrition, it's just like every other habit that we try and do in this program, right? We want to focus on one habit, do that one thing every single day for 2 weeks, and then build off of that. We don't want to focus on what you're doing bad with nutrition. We want to focus on what you're doing good. So we want to eat more of what you enjoy, right? As long as it fits our parameters of what's considered healthy for us or not detrimental for performance at least. And then, of course, we want to use our hand rule for proportions. So, going over this in the next module in depth, but basically a palm, 1 to 2 of those is the amount of protein you should have on your plate. 1 to 2 thumbs is the amount of fats you should have on your plate. And 1 to 2 fists is the amount of fruits and veggies you should have on your plate. Habits on this one, again, we're going to go into the deep dive lecture on that, so don't worry about the habits on nutrition for now. All right, another hot topic here is hydration. So there's a lot of misinformation here on hydration standards. And obviously the best test you can do is just use the urine color test, right? So when you're going to the bathroom, is your urine a yellow color or is it kind of a clear? We want it to be a light pale yellow to clear when you're drinking it, to when you're using the bathroom. If it's not, then you're slightly dehydrated, okay? There is no standardized amount to drink throughout the day. So, when people say 6 glasses of water or however many fluid ounces per pound of body weight, right? None of that really matters. Just use the urine test, right? Just go to the bathroom. How pale or how yellow is your urine? and then gauge it from there for the amount of fluid you need, okay? Once you start kind of gauging this, you're going to figure out how much fluid you really need throughout the day. Now, when you are drinking your fluids, we want a 3-to-1 ratio for our athletes when it comes to water to electrolyte drinks. So if someone wants a Gatorade, right, they should be having 1 Gatorade for every 3 waters. Okay, that's just to make sure that we're not going into any excessive electrolyte imbalances. The only other piece that you can add to the hydration is something called BCAAs or EAAs. Those are branched chain amino acids or essential amino acids. That's basically just a recovery powder that you can get, and you can basically put it in your water. Usually they come in a bunch of fruity flavors, and basically it just helps with your recovery because you're adding protein to your water. We will get into this further in the nutrition supplement also, the nutrition module also. But with supplements, we want to make sure that they're coming from a reputable source, and we're going to tell you how to assess for that. For athletes specifically, a really good way to gauge the amount of fluid you need is kind of weighing yourself before and after exercise. So if you're, in a college setting where you're training for 3 hours a day, weigh yourself right before your training session and weigh yourself afterwards. What you'll find is you probably lose about 2 or 3 pounds in that training session, and that's just water weight. So really what we look for is on a, just a standard for kind of rehydrating after an intense workout session. For every 1 pound you lose in general, we typically have 1 glass of water. Now that's a very rule of thumb based rule. It's not like very scientific. So again, just take that for what it is. But again, it's a really good way to gauge based on your hydration status as you're training throughout the week. Okay. Another good rule of thumb is just the 5 liquid rule. So only allowing yourself to drink 5 liquids ever. So those 5 liquids being water, an electrolyte drink, a juice, a coffee or a tea, and a milk. So again, with milk, it could be a dairy-based milk or it could be a coconut or an almond milk, right? But just choose those 5 liquids, and I challenge you to only use those 5 liquids for an entire year. Habits to improve your hydration. The first one, first and foremost, is carry a water bottle, right? If you have it available and readily available, you're gonna start sipping it throughout the day. And that's what we're looking for, okay? You can add flavoring if needed, right? So there's no harm in getting like a sugar-free sweetener or doing something like to add some powder to your waters to make them a little fruitier or whatever like flavor you want. If that helps you drink more water, go for it. If you are drinking juices, like orange juice or apple juice, something like that, you're going to want to dilute it a little bit because there is a lot of sugar in those drinks. And they're not necessarily great for us to drink them in high quantities. So we want to dilute it to a 1-to-3 to a 1-to-5 ratio with water. You could also add a pinch of salt to it, and that will actually kind of create a little at-home electrolyte drink. So just something to think about there. Pillar number 4 for regeneration is breathing. So we do have standards for breathing, okay? Typically, and you can do this in your chair right now, right? If you take a deep breath in, I want you to have one hand on your stomach and one hand kind of at your shoulders. As you take a deep breath in, do you feel your shoulders more or do you feel your stomach, right? Breathing in, breathing out. So some people will feel that in their diaphragm right away, and that's a good sign. But for those of you that feel like this really big up and down motion in your shoulders or tension in your neck when you're breathing, we need to work on that because that's inefficient breathing. And especially when you're in a sport like soccer, when you are doing a lot of aerobic capacity work, you're doing a lot of anaerobic threshold work, you need to be able to breathe efficiently to optimize your performance, okay? So the ways that we improve breathing, we work specifically on the exhalation. That's the biggest thing, the breathing out piece. It's very easy for all of us to breathe in, but not a lot of us have a great control over the quality of our exhalations. So a breathing drill might be a good thing for someone to do on a daily basis as a habit, working on 5 or 6 breaths at a time, just a couple times throughout the day, taking a deep breath in through our nose, and then breathing out for 5 seconds straight. Good. So at that point in time, they've got 5 seconds of exhalation. It's going to be very hard for a lot of people to do that. But it's a vital tool to improve your performance. The second thing that you can do to improve your breathing is actually that pelvic repositioning series we showed you in the other recovery and movement module. So if you do that repositioning series at your pelvis, it's actually going to help your diaphragm and actually help you breathe better. So I would include that as a habit also to do that daily. Recovery position. This is another big kind of topic, especially when it comes to recovery inside a session. So I've heard multiple things, right? And I think through the years, people have been told when they're tired to put their hands above their heads, right? To keep in an upright position while they're breathing, not allowing them to bend over. That is actually not the best position for recovery. You're actually better suited to recover when your hands are on your knees and you're in a bent forward position. So it's actually opposite of what you'd think. The reason being, when you put someone's hands in their head, like this position, they're going to go into this extended position. And that's actually going to make it a lot harder for their diaphragm to move up and down and really get a good breath. When someone's in a flexed position or bent over, their diaphragm is actually in a better position to do its job right. So don't tell your kids to put their hands on top of their head or stand tall when they're recovering from like a sprint or recovering from a heavy workout. Have them bend over, allow them to put their hands on their knees. That's totally fine. That's a good recovery position. So again, the habits here for breathing, there's only 2 of them that we recommend. The first one being that daily recovery series, working on the hip repositioning and the breathing. The second habit being creating a meditation space, right? So putting out 10 minutes aside a day to work through some meditation. There's some great apps out there. That my favorite is Headspace. So you can download that app for free and do some guided meditation. I know there's a lot of kind of stigma around meditations and trying these things, but really all we're doing is creating body awareness and creating an ability to breathe better when we meditate. So it's a really great practice to have if this is something you identify in your athletes as a problem. And number 5 for recovery and regeneration is your movement resets. We've had a whole module on this previously. We have our standards of movement, but really what we're looking to do here is integrate a team and an individual warm up and cool down, right? That's going to allow our body to reset after, we pick up some knocks, we do some certain sprints or certain exercises throughout the day. It can throw us out of alignment, throw us out of whack with our bodies. So we want to make sure we're doing some specific exercises to bring us back to a better position and make sure that we're recovering optimally, okay? And we do that through the team warm up and cool down and then the individual movement series that are assigned based on the assessment data. So again, habits for movement. As a coach, your biggest habit needs to be to include a screening day multiple times a year to make sure you can test your athletes and make sure that they're moving appropriately, breathing appropriately, and performing appropriately, okay? The second habit is just do the work, right? Once a program is assigned to your athlete, holding them accountable to doing that work every single day to improve themselves. And that's all there is to recovery and regeneration, right? Those are the 5 big things. If you do those things and do them well, injuries are going to plummet down to very close to 0 levels. We can't guarantee injury free, but it's going to be the best thing you can do to reduce the injury rate is doing these 5 things. Okay. We're going to stop there for now. Let's move on to our next module where we can go a little deep dive on nutrition.